I just put together a couple of ideas and use cases how invoice data can be used by the bank. And you can see that all, I would say, major objectives of a bank can be, fulfilled by invoice data. So if we are talking about customer insight, customer engagement and loyalty, or launching new services and realizing new revenue streams, or having cost efficiency costs, then invoice data is something that is very useful everywhere. Just a couple of examples. So when we are talking about customer insight, if a bank starts for retail customers, for example, an invoice presentment service based on digital invoice data, then if the retail customer gets its energy or utility bills in the invoice inbox of the bank, then using the data, the item level detailed data, the bank can, for example, propose savings on the energy and utility bills. And if you have these invoice data, then running the models, the bank will be able to provide personalized questions and recommendations how to save more money, how to optimize spending. And if you are, optimize your spending, then you will obviously have more money to save. So this is something that is based on the simple fact of, or a simple service as an invoice presentment for retail customers. Talking about invoicing and integration of invoicing and request to pay, if the invoice data is connected with the payment data, then it is a secure and a new way for payments, which is a seamless customer experience and which gives more control and more information about bill payments, for example. If a customer has its bills in the bank, then the bank can actually help the customer calculate the carbon footprint based on the actual spending patterns. And it's another possibility is just to set up customized loyalty programs with merchants based on the actual spending of the customer. So these are ideas and opportunities which are not here yet, but if you will have the invoice data in your bank, then they will be absolutely reachable goals and launchable services. What is more relevant now is that if you have the invoice data, you can provide invoice finance or supply chain finance for your SME and corporate customers. You can provide integrations for merchants for leasing or BNPL options, for example, with using request to pay and integrated with invoicing. And if you integrate invoicing and request to pay, you can solve for the automatic reconciliation of invoices and payments for SMEs and corporate customers. If you are going to the cost efficiency side, I think I already talked about it, that if you have access to structured digital data, then a fully digital service model will be enabled for the bank, which will significantly decrease your service costs for the SME customer base, for example. And if you use invoice data in your credit scoring, then you can decrease these costs because your credit scoring model will be much more accurate. So, you will make a better pricing for your customers on one hand, and you will be able to have a better credit risk price built into your own pricing. So these are just, ideas. Some of them are closer, some of them from an implementation perspective, some of them are more remote, but this shows, I think, the value and the potential in using invoice data. And how we structured in our minds and our offering for the banks based on the segments, and this slide also shows the complexity of a service offering. So these are the offerings that are invoice related and that are customer facing services. And the least difficult is just to provide an invoice inbox or invoice repository for retail customers. Here, the bank only presents the invoices and just collects all the invoices from third-party data sources. If we integrate digital invoice management or e-invoicing with request to pay, then this can be a good offering for medium and large enterprises, but also for SMEs, where the payment request can be generated from the invoice data of the ERP solution of the banking customer. And this means that the bank still doesn't have to generate an e-invoice. It just uses third-party data sources. But if it has the e-invoice and the payment request, then it can track the whole payment transaction afterwards and can solve for the automatic reconciliation of the invoice and the payment request. And this can have like a 95% savings potential compared to paper-based processes. So we think that this is a new use case. And the most complex offering is for the SME customers when the bank does not only do these services that I mentioned below, but the bank actually launches an online invoicing or e-invoicing solution when it gets to the detailed process of issuing an invoices. This is the most complex use case because this part is already regulated from how it must be done in certain countries. It requires also connections with the tax authorities, and it can have multiple specific customer journeys for special invoicing use cases. So this is the most difficult thing. However, we can, or we have the technology to help banks with all of these use cases, and we are also in the process of making it easier and easier for banks to start these services.